Is April 18th, 2023, PACO General Membership Meeting. My name is Becky Lewis, President of PACO, so welcome. We're going to start off with some announcements. So I want to give a shout out and a thank you to Anderson Reporting for providing us with the Zoom capabilities to hold our meetings monthly. They've been fantastic and continue to be, so thank you to them. We are celebrating 50 years with PACO this year, so be on the lookout for events. And of course, our big event coming up is Paralegal Day. So purchase your tickets if you haven't done so already. And the Wellness Initiative just rolled out and announced a walking group on behalf of PACO to get out and get moving. So that is starting April 30th. And if you haven't seen it yet, we have a new job board. It's very similar to what you would see in LinkedIn. So definitely be checking that out and let your employers know if they need to post any jobs with PACO that they can do so very easily now. Programming is on the PACO calendar. So if you haven't looked at the PACO calendar lately, be sure to look at it and sign up for events to attend. And September 29th will be coming our biennial workshop and exhibition. So we will be moving that along. Once we get past Paralegal Day, you'll start seeing information on that. So any other leaders, I see leaders on the call that have any announcements? Nope. All right. Well, I will go ahead and introduce our speaker today, who is Mike McDonner. He's the president of the Ohio Reporting Company and several other leading court reporting companies. He oversees a staff of 600 court reporters, transcriptionists, and legal videographers across the U.S., focusing on new trends in litigation technology and trial presentation software. Before retiring from the practice of law, Mike handled medical malpractice defense cases, RICO litigation, and appraiser litigation during the housing crisis. So welcome, Mike. I'm going to hand it over to you.
Hey, thanks a lot. I appreciate that. And we really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you guys today. Your organization is one that's really important to us. It's one that we want to stay involved with and support in any way we can. Paralegals definitely make the litigation industry run. I always remember when I first got out of law school and I had to schedule my first deposition, I spent, days writing out the questions, going through everything I was going to say, trying to get ready for it. And about 4 hours before it was, no, I guess not 4 hours, I guess the day before it was supposed to go, I realized it was my obligation to get a court reporter to the deposition, and I had no clue what that was. So of course I just asked about paralegal and she took care of it immediately. And that's when I learned the value of paralegals on the first week of the job. So they know more than the lawyers do half of the time, or maybe more than half the time. Anyway, so today the CLE topic is one that we've done quite a few times, and it's as it says, how to persuade a juror or judge in 30 seconds. That picture there is from To Kill a Mockingbird, good book, old movie. And that's, Atticus Finch. And it's back when you could go with a great, sort of seersucker suit and a booming voice and convince a jury to sort of do what you want with a long monologue. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, things don't really work that way anymore. And so times have changed quite a bit. And as an aside, this must have been every law student's favorite book, because half the people in my law school named their first kid Atticus, and now we have Atticuses running around every classroom, which is, anyway, please no more Atticuses. Okay, about us. The Ohio Court Reporting Company actually started in Louisville, Kentucky back in '79, and we've been working in Ohio since 1985. We are actually a nationwide company now, but we do business under different names in every state. And in every state, we hire a staff of local administrators and reporters and videographers who are employees. And we let them sort of set the policies and procedures and pricing for that state and adapt to the local needs of that state and regions. We found, and in that way, sometimes our offices operate very differently in, say, Colorado versus Florida versus Ohio. but it's to better serve the needs of those areas. And we think that approach works better than some of the top-down approach where you've got, one person in New Jersey making all the decisions. That doesn't work out well. So in any event, we've been growing rapidly and we continue to do so, and we hope to keep doing a good job. A lot of that is because we do believe in personal relationships. You'll have a dedicated scheduling team with us where you'll get to know our scheduler. She'll know you, she'll know your preferences, often without having to ask. We'll have dedicated client services representatives like Chloe and Lisa, who are present today. And they'll also, get to know you, make sure they check in on you, and always provide you with what you need. Again, we'd like to have that local focus, but the national presence. And we like to listen to you and find out what you need. So since we believe in personal relationships, I'll tell you about myself. I'm a Libra, so I must know everything about the law, right? I do have, did have quite a bit of legal experience, worked in the med mal field. I've worked on the plaintiff side. I've worked, done appellate work. And while I don't do that anymore, my experience, I think, helped bridge a gap with our company, because oftentimes court reporters and maybe attorneys and even paralegals have three very different perspectives when it comes to what they've got to get done in a day and how they're going to get it done in a day. And they face unique challenges that they don't always understand one another. And we've really tried to adapt the way we run our business to be more customer friendly and to understand those differences. I have 5 kids, so this won't be the most difficult speech I have to give today in all likelihood. Pike is our youngest, therefore the cutest, so I'll exploit him for the purpose of these slideshows. He loves dogs, loves working his tan, and takes your drink. And he hates it when you don't schedule with Ohio Reporting Company. So anytime you schedule with somebody else, this poor kid is crying somewhere, so that's on you. But no, in all seriousness, the reason we use these slides is because when it comes to persuading a jury, it's all about visual imagery. And that's what we're going to talk a lot about today. You'll remember the cute kid, the crying kid. You won't remember half of what I say. And the same way as with jurors and all other humans. And so we really have to adapt our discovery process and our litigation approach to acknowledge that reality. Oh, these are the kids today, by the way. I've been doing this so long. They've aged a little bit. So, everybody always wants to see what they look like now. By the way, we took this picture at like 6 in the morning, right before the first day of school. So that's why they all look like they're about to, die or something. But Pike's still pretty cute. Anyway, we'll move on. All right. So what do? We're a full service litigation support firm, court reporting, real-time video, transcription, interpreting, service process, you name it. Our goal is to be a one-stop shop where we can provide you with any litigation support need you might have. All right, so on to the substance of the CLE. First impressions, openings, and video. The guy here is obviously not making a good first impression, or perhaps he's bored with the speech. Hopefully you guys aren't asleep yet. I feel like so often in some of these things, the ones that are done remotely, people can tune out pretty easily. Okay, first impressions matter. There's been decades of research in social psychology, and what they found, it's not too surprising, is that humans make very rapid decisions about other people. And for all of human history, that's been necessary, because you always have to understand, what's the other person's agenda? What are they like? Are they a threat to me? Are they here to help me? And that's been good for people. But what we found is that people have begun to make decisions based on smaller and smaller pieces of data from observing others. And so your goal when you're going through the litigation process should be to take your depositions, video record all of them is my suggestion, and then utilize your best video, your best thin slices of data to make an impression on the jury in the opening statements and opening arguments. All right, opinions are formed in 30 seconds or less. The way they studied this was they took a group of college students and they showed them a video of their professor teaching. This was on the first day of class, so the students had never seen the professor teach before. The video they showed them didn't even have audio on it. It was just the teacher teaching and they couldn't hear what they said. It was 30 seconds long. They then asked these students to grade the teacher's abilities based on several different categories as to whether they're a good teacher or not. All right, so they took all that data. Then they had the students actually take the class for that entire semester, which is, 5-6 months. And at the end of that class, they asked them to grade the teacher again. And what they found was the grades they gave their teacher after watching a 30-second silent clip were essentially the same as the grades they gave the teacher after actually taking the class for 6 months. That shows you that people form an opinion rapidly and they hold to it. And that's really important. They then started doing more tests to see if they could bring that time down. And they found with high school students that the students were making a decision about how good a teacher was or was not in about 6 seconds. So they could show them a 6-second video, have them watch it, and they would form an opinion that they kept for the entire rest of the year. Okay. And then you might think, well, these are just kids. Other people, we're all more mature. We will take longer to make that kind of decision. And what they found is that's not the case. It applies to virtually everyone in a wide variety of areas. All adults, when trying to assess the personalities of strangers, would make that decision within about the 30 seconds. Courtroom judges made decisions about their expectation for a criminal trial outcome just by looking at the defendant. So in other words, the judge looked at the defendant and in the back of their mind assessed whether they thought they were guilty or not guilty within about 30 seconds. And that initial, decision by them or assumption by them almost always correlated to what happened at the end of the trial. And that, of course, is one of the many reasons why, good criminal defense attorneys, they'll have a closet full of extra suits and dress clothes for their clients in case they don't have them, because those first impressions matter. You need to walk into the courtroom always looking your best. That's for sure. So you could convince a juror, mediator, judge, even your opponent if you have a powerful video in your opening statements and opening remarks. It makes a tremendous difference in all of your litigation preparation. All your discovery preparation needs to be geared toward that type of outcome. So in other words, what does that mean? Well, it means having a videographer present at your depositions and your discovery. So that's the only way you're going to capture the video, obviously. Sometimes people are on a budget and they have to decide, well, I can either hire a videographer or a court reporter. Our suggestion to people, if that happens, is just hire the videographer, because we can always take the video and transcribe it to create a transcript, but I can't take a transcript and go back in time and video it. That said, the best practice is to have both a reporter and a videographer there. But if you're going to do, your best for your client, you got to have that video, because the majority of human communication is nonverbal, and we'll talk about that more later. Okay, so jurors make up their mind during opening. And again, studies have shown that 85% of jurors, they make up their minds about liability or guilt during the opening statement. And the rest of the trial, all they're doing is they're listening for evidence that supports the opinion they formed during opening. And I think a lot of lawyers are surprised when they hear that, because we're often taught in law school that, you save everything for your closing, that opening is just sort of the setup and it's not that important. And we really have to focus in our closing statement. Well, if you're trying to win in closing statement, you've already lost. If you're getting all the way to the end of the trial and you think you have to save the day then, this isn't, Matlock or TV from the 80s. That doesn't work. If you don't get them in the beginning, you're not going to get them. It's a whole lot like, it's like if you're watching like talk news, Fox or CNN, and they got two people up there, and one's on the left and one's on the right, and they're giving their opinions. You already have an opinion. You're just listening to them, waiting for them to say something you agree with to reinforce that opinion. That's what jurors do. They pay attention during opening, they make up their mind, they spend the rest of the trial looking for evidence to support their decision. And that's it. So you've got to make sure opening statements, and I realize you guys are paralegals, so you're probably not getting up there giving the opening statement, but your lawyers rely on you and they rely on your opinions. And these are things that you can, bring to their attention and encourage them to do when you're working with them on openings. But, their opening has to evolve to the way we're all changing. we all know 30 years ago, hell, 20 years ago, cell phones didn't really have the internet on them. Nobody was spending all their time on their phones. Now we always do. My kids have used electronics so often that when they were young, there were times they would take a magazine and flip the page like it was going to scroll up or something. All of social media is geared towards shorter and shorter attention spans. YouTube used to have commercials that would run every 10 minutes. Now they'll run every 2 to 5 minutes. So everything in between those commercials gets shorter and shorter, gets directly to the point, makes an impact, and moves on. And again, as the studies have shown that we've already referenced, that's the case. And in my personal experience, that's the case. When I was a kid, I loved movies like, Die Hard, Indiana Jones, lots of action, lots of fun. I try to get my kids to watch those. They pay attention for about 5-10 minutes and they're bored. I mean, attention spans have changed. You've got to get people at the very beginning. Okay. And video is the best way to capture it. And what I want to do is show you a quick deposition clip. But let me first give you a little bit of background about the case. This is a homeowner's dispute. They were fighting over whether this guy made an improvement to the property that actually went across the property line. And his lawyer did his opening statement and said, look, this is a nice old man who's trying to make, a nice older gentleman, trying to make his property value better, which improves property value of everyone else. He did everything that was necessary. And it's simply a homeowners association that's overly aggressive with too much time on their hand, picking on this poor old guy. That's what his lawyer said in opening. Now, the homeowners association can get up and show this one clip of him from his deposition testimony when they asked him, did you get approval before you did this? All right, let's just watch this for a sec.
We can't hear that, Mike.
Oh,
When you share your screen, there's a button to push to share with sound.
okay, let me see. Man, I hate it when it does this.
Might need to unshare and then reshare it and select the sound button.
Okay, stop share. Sorry about that. Been doing it for whatever I just said 2 years and still can't get it right, apparently.
It's okay. We'll get you through it.
All right. Oh, you're right. Share sound. Wow.
That should work.
All right. All right. Let's see if you can't hear it now, let me know.
On that.
Did you obtain prior approval from the association for that shed?
Actually, I'm assuming you people have gone to the files, the building files, and all the other necessary files. If you haven't, you're a fool. Actually, it was an accommodation that we spoke about, and we never made it. It was an accommodation, and we never made a formal application about it. And if you take exception to it, I'll put it back where it was, which is right on the killer's line. You want me to do that? I'll be glad to. Today, tomorrow, next week, that's where it was. It was on the survey. It's on the survey. And I gently removed it. Am I going to be punished for it? Good. I'll put it back.
Was that a yes or a no?
It was a fuck you.
All right. So this guy, after his attorney introduces him as just a nice old guy who's been taken advantage of by the homeowners association, they ask him a simple question of, did you get approval first? And he goes on a 1-minute tirade where he's yelling at them. His hands are flying up in the air. Looks like he wants to murder them. His voice is, angry. And of course, at the end, he drops the F-bomb. This video clip, when the jury sees it, they've now forgotten everything else that that other attorney has said. This speaks for itself, and it's persuasive by itself. He didn't get approval. He's a mean jerk that's not very likable, and he's an extremely angry person, which is the opposite of what their lawyer said. And so that costs them to lose their credibility when you do things like that. And this is why it's critical that you record all of your depositions, all of your discovery process, because you get little gems like this. And the other thing that I would point out is how much of the communication is nonverbal. Even if we had left this on silent and you watched him talk and I asked you, is this a nice, reasonable person or an angry person? You'd say it's an angry person. Again, he's flailing his arms around, he's gesticulating, he looks mad. Video makes a huge, huge difference. Okay, again, times have changed. You know, the jurors don't have time or patience for the hour-long sermon or the detailed storytelling. It doesn't matter how good of a lawyer or storyteller you are. Video can always do a better job. I can always show something to someone better than I can describe it to them. And again, as I said before, even us as adults, if you notice your patience for the development of a story when it comes to movies, it changes, it's getting reduced. In every generation, it's less and less. So you've got to make sure you have a quick, impactful video that you're using in your openings and you stick with throughout the trial. All right, this is what I said earlier, that reference we were talking, and again, it's not just me making things up. All of the social research is attached there within the paragraph. You guys can obviously have the slideshow if you'd like it, but we will remember 85 to 90% of what we see. It's why I always put pictures of kids in the beginning of every presentation, because they're cute, they're funny, people like them, people remember them. But you only remember about 15% of what you hear. So the vast majority of what I said today will be forgotten, but you'll remember those kids, as I said. Jurors are the same way. And I think attorneys don't realize it sometimes, especially attorneys who have been practicing for longer. They think it's all about them, and they think that you can go in and make a very long, dramatic, wonderful speech and you're going to persuade someone. You'd be far better off just making quick, short, succinct points supported by video evidence. Jurors will find that much more effective and much more persuasive than trying to be Matlock or Atticus Finch or Perry Mason. Okay, what else do you want video at depositions? The biggest reason, I think, is that witnesses are never as good at their deposition as they are at trial. Because when they're at a deposition, it's usually their first time testifying. Oftentimes, their lawyer will tell them to focus on being comfortable, not to worry about what they look like. It'll be their first time getting cross-examined by someone, and they'll flub questions. But when they get to trial, they will have gone over that deposition, they will have practiced it all, and they'll be much better. So capture them. You want to capture your opponent at their worst and be able to show that to the jury first. And, you know, some just examples. You know, you take the same person and you show them with tattoos and dress casual versus a suit, and you immediately have two different impressions about them and two different opinions. It doesn't matter which gender it is, that tends to be the case. One of these people you would want to operate on you, the other one you might not, because we make those types of decisions. And when you can capture the guy on the right in his deposition testimony and show him to the jury before they see the guy on the left, makes a difference. The other thing is that, as I said, lawyers make promises during their opening statements. They tell juries that they're going to find out certain things about the parties and they're going to learn things during the trial. And so they'll describe the people that they're going to see. And a lot of times their description doesn't match reality. And when it doesn't, they lose their credibility and they can lose their case. You know, sorry, this one, if you describe these as like hardworking college students and these people show up, you know, it's not believable. If this is the lady who's the victim of office bullying, people aren't going to find that very believable. If this is the best driver in the world, again, people are going to say, okay, he's probably not so responsible after all. And while these look like, you know, okay, they're sort of funny, we see crazy stuff in depositions every day. People lose their cool. They act in ways that you would never believe. And if you don't have it on camera, you might as well not have it at all. Okay. And one of the big reasons for that is, as I said, social signaling. What you don't say matters the most. Most of our communication is nonverbal. That goes from simple things like the volume of my voice, the tone of my voice. Is my face red? Am I sweating? Do I look down every time you ask me a hard question? Do I have to take a long pause every time you ask me a hard question? Or am I just, easily answering them and going with the flow? All that makes a difference. None of that's captured in a transcript. You don't get to see the people's face. And, the reporter's not allowed to say, type a colloquy or anything saying, witness raises voice, witness screams. No, it just has what they're saying. So far as reading it, the person's being totally reasonable. And the only way you would know that's not true is if you see the video. This is one of the better examples I can give of that. So if you're at trial and the witness is not available, the only option is to read their deposition transcript into the record. When I was practicing, if we had some type of evidence that we had to get into the record just to survive like a directed verdict, in other words, we needed the evidence in, but we didn't really want the jury to pay attention to it, we'd try to find a way to read it because it was incredibly boring. Often it's read by the clerk, and the clerk by rule will read it in a monotone voice. So everybody basically tunes out and goes to sleep. So if you look at this transcript, and if I was reading it in a trial, it'd be, no, I'm not going to read it all, but remember earlier today when I asked you, answer no. Question, why don't you listen to what I have to say first, and then maybe you'll tell me yes or no. Answer, I don't have to listen to anything you have to say. Question, if you have a question about my question, if I read this for 3 more minutes, half of you would turn your cameras off and go to sleep. It just gets more and more boring. And if you follow it closely and you pay attention to it, you can tell there's some content, it's contentious. There's a little bit of arguing going on, but it's not fully understood. And it goes on and on. But now if we take that exact same content and we show it as a video, then you all may recognize it.
Remember earlier today when I asked you?
No.
Why don't you listen to what I had to say first? And then maybe you'll tell me.
So this is obviously Justin Bieber, for those of you who didn't know. And if you don't know who he is, good for you. He's a terrible musician, though. But you've already got, if you didn't know who he was, you're already starting to form opinions. He's looking down, he's rocking in his chair, he's not paying attention to the guy, and let's just watch it.
I don't have to listen to anything you have to say.
Clarify my question. If you have a question about my question,
today is not
you have the right to be clear for you to be able to be
Mr.
clear.
DeCal.
You remember being in Australia ever?
Again, the guy stops, pops his collar, looks at the camera.
I don't know if I've been to Australia. I've been to Australia?
Are you aware that Scooter Braun knows that your bodyguards have attacked photographers?
What objection to form?
What kind of question is that? That didn't make sense.
That's correct.
That doesn't make sense. That's a weird question. That doesn't make sense.
Can you just ask some foundation?
I didn't hear your response. Again, sir, I didn't finish. Oh, I'm sorry. I interrupt.
Really? You didn't want to interrupt.
Is it true that you know that?
All right. It's pretty entertaining, but it goes on for 7 or 8 minutes, and we won't watch all of it. If you get time on a lunch break one day or something, it's hilarious. You can also watch Lil Wayne deposition videos online. They're crazy. They may not be safe for the workplace. But my point is, when you look at this guy, if you didn't know he was, a pop star, you would think he was some punk kid with an attitude, and you probably would not have a very high opinion of him. He's very argumentative. He's dismissive of the adults around him, not paying attention, rocking in his chair, just being difficult in general. And compare that to me reading that transcript to you. You would have never gotten that visual image from that transcript. So that alone tells you how much more powerful video is than just reading a monotone transcript. The only other thing I would say about this is whoever TMZ or whoever hired as the videographer did a poor job. You shouldn't have all this mess in the background. It should be focused on good old Justin.
Remember,
all right. In-house video. If you ever need in-house video, we do have the largest in-house video department in the United States. All of our videographers are employees, whereas a lot of other videographers are independent contractors. And, so that allows us to control our costs more. It allows us to have people available all the time, 24 hours. We have male and female videographers. So if you have a medical exam and you want them to have a specific gender, then we'll make sure that we have those to you. We can do any type of video that you need. And we have rates for the 21st century. What do I mean by that? Well, When video first started being used in depositions, it was back in the early 80s, where there were times they would hire the guy from the local TV station to come down and film it, or somebody with this massive, video camera, and they charged hundreds of dollars an hour because they were experts. Well, those prices continued even though the technology became commonplace, and all of us can now operate a video camera without difficulty and can do so professionally. So our rates are much lower than many of our competitors because we recognize that fact, and because all of our videographers and reporters are employees. Why does that matter? Well, when they're all independent contractors, it means that 3 and 4 companies, or sometimes more, are bidding on the same independent contractor every day to get their work. And oftentimes they're all competing and they're offering more and more money to that person, so they'll come and take their job. Well, that gets passed on to you and to your clients, who end up having to pay more. Whereas ours, who are employees, they show up every day, they do the same job, and we can control our costs much better. I always tell attorneys and paralegals, imagine if every week you had to restaff all of your secretaries and paralegals by bidding on the services of independent contractors and not knowing which ones would actually show up. Your office would be a complete disaster. In any event, we try to avoid that. All right, come on, computer. All right, working video. We suggest that you have a videographer and a court reporter at every deposition. That way the record is captured perfectly, both in writing and visually. However, sometimes people have to make difficult decisions because of budgets. Working video is what we do when somebody is on a tight budget and they still want a court reporter there. The court reporter will go to the deposition. They'll set up the video camera. They'll set up all the mics, just like they would if they were a videographer. But during the deposition, they're focused on just court reporting and capturing the record. They're not going to monitor the video camera. That means your video quality may not be perfect. If a witness moves around and gets out of the screen, or if one of the mics isn't doing well, the reporter may not notice because their first obligation is to reporting. A lot of insurance companies still prefer this solution because they know, or they strongly suspect, their case isn't going to trial, but they want that video record so they can assess it internally, and they use it because it's a lot more affordable. It's $75 per deposition instead of like $95 per hour, or some of our competitors that are charging hundreds per hour. Cost effective, unobtrusive, again, but it's an option there, because your goal has to be, based on what we've gone over in terms of the science, capturing video of the discovery process so you can show it to the jury at trial. So if you have that tight budget, at least do the working video. All right, then once you have that video, we do have complete litigation support. We can synchronize the text to the video. I'll show you more of that later. We have video editing apps that we can provide you all free, and we can train you on them, and we'll go over more of that later. We are compatible with Trial Director, Summation, Sanction, and others. I think someone in the chat box, I'm sorry I missed it earlier, says that they're already using Trial Director and that it's very effective, and you're correct. Trial Director is a great option for this. You can plug the videos directly into it, and you can have a full presentation just like this one, or better than this one, certainly at trial. Our rates, again, if you want a videographer, it's $95 an hour. If you want working video, it's simply $75 per deposition. So you can, again, if you're on a budget. And my screen does not want to change slides. All right, it's moving slow. All right, how do we get this in at trial? I like to go over, the evidence behind, the rules behind it, how to get in. Again, I realize you guys aren't lawyers. It's part of the presentation that I have to do to get the CLE credit, but it is something that you can keep in the back of your mind when you're scheduling videographers. Also, I'm going to focus on the federal rules because we do this in basically all 50 states. And what I would encourage you and your team to do is to look specifically at the Ohio rules and see how they apply for your state cases. What I have looked at and seen is that virtually every state, including Ohio, models the federal rules and has the same or very similar language. But what it says, Rule 32, and it's the use of depositions during like a trial or a hearing or anywhere else, and it lays out when you're allowed to use that deposition during those proceedings. And if you notice under AC3 here, the deposition of a party, agent, or designee can be used for any purpose. So that means you can show it at any time for any reason. And most courts have ruled it that way. So that means you can use it in opening, you can use it on cross-examination, you can use it in closing, you can use it whenever you want and however you want. It's for any purpose whatsoever. That's if it's the adverse party. That's why, again, if you're on a budget and you don't want to do video at every single deposition, at least make sure you're doing it for the adverse party, the plaintiff, the defendants, the co-defendants. Maybe you don't want to do it for just some basic witnesses, but at least get all the parties. Because if it's a non-party, it's subject to greater scrutiny by the judge. But if it's a party, it's coming in, and you're going to be allowed to use it the way you want. Again, the federal approach, and most states, is that the trial court has discretion as to whether or not they can bring in deposition testimony during opening statements or not. It is typically permitted, but in some courts it isn't. And there's no real clear-cut reason for it. I would say sometimes if you have a judge who's been on the bench for 30 years and they didn't use video when they were an attorney, they may not let you put it in. A lot of the younger judges who've been on the bench for 10 years, they recognize it, they used it, they're going to allow you to bring it in. The most important thing for your team is to file a pretrial motion in limine before trial, telling the judge, showing the judge exactly what video clips you plan to use and why you think they're permitted to be used in that fashion. Then get the judge to rule on each and every one of those before the trial starts. What you don't want to do is go into trial for your opening statement and start playing a video, the other side object, judge calls everybody up, and then the orders it stricken from the record. Because you'll be fumbling, you've made a horrible first impression, and you'll have lost the jury. So always ask permission to use video clips in your pre-trial motions in limine and explain exactly when and how and why you're using them, and let a judge make a decision before trial. Otherwise, you're going to have a mess. Okay. If it's not an adverse party, if it's simply a witness or something, then you have to argue why it's going to be admissible. And again, generally the courts will say, well, if it's later admissible, if you were going to get it in anyway, then you'll be allowed to use it during your opening statement. And some of the best arguments for this come from like criminal cases where the prosecutors will show pictures of like the victims of a murder or something during their opening statement. And the reason they do that is because they know how important opening statements are and how powerful a picture like that can be. And so, of course, defense attorneys always object to it, and they virtually always lose because that photo can come in later anyway. Then the judge should be, the attorney should be allowed to show it in their opening statement. And, there's some good cases from California and Texas that go into those details. So showing a crime scene is not only permissible, but appropriate if they're later going to admit it. Highly inflammatory photos are regularly admitted. In this case, a prosecutor showed victims' corpses of small children in opening statements. And the court said, well, if it's later going to be admissible, then you can bring it in. My point is simply, if you're before a judge and you're arguing whether or not you can show a video of the opposing party's prior testimony, and they're saying, well, that's too inflammatory, that's too prejudicial. Well, come on. Courts across the country have been putting in pictures of murder victims for decades. That's far more inflammatory than just showing the jury what the other side's already said on the record. So you should be able to put on your best case. The other thing that every lawyer needs to make the case to the judge is, it doesn't matter how long you've been practicing law. It doesn't matter how good you are at, convincing people of things. The video of the person doing it will always be more compelling. If I sit there and try to describe to you how a car wreck happened, it will never be as good as showing you how the video from the car wreck. So it's important they be allowed to do so. And then again, this case here, it's a Florida case. It's one that you or your lawyers might want to use doing legal research. to find cases similar to it in Ohio, where they allow, where they do show that non-party videos are subject to more scrutiny, but generally they can still be admitted at the jurisdiction of the judge. There's a long history of cases, and I'm not going to read through all these, saying that the depositions of parties are allowed in closings. That's virtually permitted everywhere and anytime. Now, part of that is because closings have always been given more discretion because you're supposed to be arguing, whereas in openings, you're supposed to be saying this is what the evidence will show. And part of that's because the rules were set up for a time when we, argued differently than we do today. But again, the case law is evolving in a direction where, okay, if I can show you this video clip at the end of trial and it'll have all this persuasive effect, why wouldn't I be able to show it to you at the very beginning and get directly to the point and lay out that roadmap of what you're going to see throughout? It just makes logical sense, and a lot of judges go that way. Okay, we're getting long on time, so I'm going to skip some of this. A couple of things you shouldn't do, and this, of course, all of the dumb things have been done in Kentucky. That's where I'm from, so they're easier to use. In this case, they showed a video which depicted the entire crime scene, and that would have been acceptable and completely usable. But the officer filming the crime scene did a narration over the video discussing the defendant's alleged confession and why he thought the defendant committed the crime. So that made it completely inadmissible, and they showed the darn thing in their opening. And so then a mistrial was granted. Here's the point: don't mess with the video. Take the video as it is. You can cut it down into small pieces to show what you want, but you can't narrate over it. You can't change the lighting to make the opposing party look more scary. Don't do anything like that. It's going to get your video thrown out. Then always make sure that you have a way to admit the video and that you can actually authenticate the video. And in this case, they had a CD, a music video, not a video, but a audio clip where there's somebody singing about a crime. And the plaintiff said, well, it's the defendant making a confession that they committed the crime. However, the defendant gets on the stand and says, that's not me singing on that clip. And they didn't have anybody who could say it was him singing on the clip. So again, he got off and was not charged or not convicted. And I guess the point here is make sure that you're able to authenticate your videos. Obviously, your videographer can do that. Make sure they're noticed just in case they have to show up at trial. Usually the parties will waive that, the judge will waive that, but you always want to be ready for the worst case scenario. Okay, any questions about anything so far? I will keep going. Sometimes I get like hundreds of questions, sometimes none. I don't know if that means I'm doing better or worse than normal, so we'll keep going. All right, when you need videographers or court reporters, we do offer nationwide scheduling. We have a national client services manager, Natalia Basham. We work in every state, lots of foreign countries. We try to have reporters in every state. If we don't have an employee in that state, then we have a trusted partner in those states who will agree to our rates and our services and everything else that we can rely on. We also have an expertise. For example, you'll see there on the slide where it says, do not go to China. There was a couple of years ago where we had a lawyer, and he needed to get a court reporter to Shanghai right away. He had some kind of like trademark case or something. He wanted to get set up. And we had to let him know that it is illegal to take the deposition of a Chinese national in China in a foreign case. So even if the Chinese citizen says, yeah, come ahead and depose me, if you do so, you're committing a felony in China. So anytime you need to depose a Chinese citizen, you have to have them go to like South Korea or Japan or Singapore, and you've got to depose them from there. And if you do that, you're fine. Of course, we let the lawyer know this, and he was very happy because otherwise he would have ended up in a Chinese prison. So I always tell the paralegals, if you like the lawyer you work with, don't send them to China. But if you are sick of the lawyer you work with, send them to take a deposition in China. They'll be out of your hair for a couple of years. But it's good to work with people who at least know that, so that we can, help you when that comes up. If you need to schedule, Christina Winninger, she's our scheduling manager, very friendly. Everybody tends to like her. She'll get to know you. For the most, for the vast majority of the time, we can get you a court reporter in as little as 1 or 2 hours notice. Now, if it's, 6 hours away from the largest city, that could be hard to do. But if you're near any major metropolitan area, generally with as little as 1 or 2 hours notice, sometimes 15 minutes notice, we can get you somebody there. She's quite a problem solver. Lisa Gann, she's on the call today. She's Director of Marketing and Client Services. She's there in Ohio all the time. She'll stop into your office, bring you some treats, catch up with you, and let you know what, or find out what your needs are, and try to make sure that we're meeting them. And Chloe Gilbert, I must have lost your slide in here, but Chloe's also here today, and is also our Assistant Marketing Director in Ohio. We cover all of Ohio. That means we don't charge you to go to any part of Ohio. So we're not going to charge a mileage to drive to Grover Hill or Ohio City or any of the tiny little towns you see on this map. It's our job to have reporters everywhere, and if we don't, and we have to incur expenses to get there, well, that's on us. It shouldn't be on you. I've never understood why people charge your clients to send a reporter somewhere they should be in the first place. So we're always available, and we'll go wherever you want us to go. Rain is not a problem. We've taken depositions during storms. We take depositions in Florida during hurricanes, which is crazy, but they do it down there. In Ohio and then the north, we take depositions in the snow all the time, and in Florida, they think we're crazy for doing so. It's like that movie that Liam Neeson's in. He has that special set of skills, and he's going to find you wherever you are and kill you. Only instead of murdering you, we're going to take your deposition. So wherever you want us to go, we'll be there. Obviously, if you want to do it by Zoom, we're more than happy to do that as well. We've taken roughly 250,000 Zoom depositions and remote depositions since the pandemic started. We were one of the first companies, heck, back in February of the outbreak, we were pushing lawyers to start taking depositions remotely. And back then, most of them had the attitude of, this will blow over in a couple of weeks, we'll just wait. And we eventually got them to start using the remote systems. But anyway, whether you want to be in person or you want to be remote, we'll get there. Obviously, we probably wouldn't take a deposition in a tornado. But the point is, if you can get there or your witness can get there, we'll be there. We're also happy to do the hybrid depositions where we'll go to wherever the deponent is, and you can, your lawyer can stay home, or we can all be in present, or we can all be remote, whatever you want. When it comes to remote depositions, the thing I'd also say is, in person rather, whatever you need, we'll give you. You want our reporter to wear a mask, that's fine. You want our reporter to be vaccinated, we'll send you a vaccinated one. We're there to accommodate your needs. All right, Liam Neeson does not really work for us. The point is, you can wake us up in the middle of the night. We're always available. You'll have our whole support staff here. These are all of our cell phone numbers. You'll also have our general line. People have called me out on this and called me at 2 in the morning. I will pick up. We'll answer. All right, location, why it matters. We try to have as nice conference rooms as possible all around the U.S. That one there, I think, is our Orlando one. It sits right on Lake downtown. It's really nice. If you ever have an excuse to, go do some work in Orlando, it's not a bad deal. Okay, why do conference rooms matter and location matter? Once again, looking at social science research, what scientists have found is that people who are comfortable in an environment or who have experienced success in that environment before have better outcomes in negotiations when it comes to mediations or arbitrations. So in other words, if you're in an office or conference room environment where you've worked previously or where you just feel comfortable or stronger, you will do better in the negotiation process than someone who isn't. So, and as it says from the studies, people who use those types of offices achieve superior individual outcomes during the negotiation process. Well, what does that mean? Well, what it means is that, frankly, if you're having a mediation or arbitration, you should do it at your office. Your lawyers should do it. The lawyers you work with should do it at their office. But the other lawyer is generally going to be, they're going to say, well, that's not fair. I want to do it at mine. And so they'll say, well, let's do it in a neutral location then. Well, you're best off doing it at a neutral location where you've taken depositions before, where you worked before, and where it's a nice environment. We offer free conference rooms. They're all across Ohio, all across the United States. You can use them whenever you need. and you will achieve superior outcomes when you then host mediations or arbitrations there. Again, you always want to force your opponent to a neutral location. The science is very clear, and that you'll have a better outcome. We have conference rooms all across Ohio and the U.S. I hope I edited these slides. Yeah, there's Columbus. You know, we try to have rooms with a good view, lots of comfort. There'll always be drinks and snacks and paper and pens, whatever you need to help your lawyers focus. That one's in Orlando. That's a fun one. I put a lot of those in here. New Orleans, Tampa, you know, Miami, wherever you need to go, we've got them for you. And they're generally Class A properties. They're well kept. They're places that you'd be comfortable going. And we like to have them with good views when there are views available. Some cities don't have good views, but we do the best we can. We have a competitor who's a very big company. It's Veritex, to be honest, down in Florida. I think they may have closed this office finally, but this was their headquarters, and across the street was, you can't really see it here, it's a massage parlor, a tattoo studio, and I don't remember what the other one is. When you have your client going to take a deposition, it's one of the most important days in their life, and they're going to be very nervous and anxious. And the last thing you need them do is driving around looking for parking, and they're parking at a tattoo parlor or a massage parlor. Maybe if it's a really tough deposition, after the deposition's over, you get that massage or something. But in all seriousness, that's not what you want. You want a nice environment where they're comfortable, and that's what we try to provide. Okay, if you need to schedule with us, our website also embraces technology. It's very easy to use. If you look there across the top, you can schedule online, you can make payments online, you can access your repository. Your repository, you'll get a username and password, and it will have every deposition transcript from every deposition you've ever taken. It'll have every exhibit, every notice, any type piece of paper or documentation that you've ever used in a deposition we've taken will be there. And you can access it 24/7, and it's free. It also has a calendar on there of every deposition you've scheduled with us in the past and the future. So if you're ever wondering, man, did I ever schedule that deposition in July? You can open up the calendar and see if it's on our calendar or not. And it just makes life a whole lot easier for you. And if I had one more time, I'd pull up the website and scroll through it, but there it is. The repository is free, so you can save all those hundreds. Again, saves your clients money. Always ask people, are you getting what you're paying for? Is the juice worth the squeeze? We do not charge extra for any of these things. So if you want a transcript and you want the full-size paper, the mini, a PDF, email, PT, whatever you want, it's all free. You can get one of those, you can get all of those. There's no reason in this modern age to be charging people extra to make a PDF of a transcript. We'll also always provide the deposition audio. So if you ever have a question of, like, your lawyer will say, I didn't say that, I know this transcript's wrong. We'll provide the audio to show that it is correct and it is what was said. A lot of our competitors will charge extra for emails, or they'll charge extra for videographers there. We don't do any of that. We charge you per page for the transcript, and that's it. And we have the best per page price in Ohio. Okay, I only have like 6 minutes left, but I wanted to show you this real quickly. This could really change your practice. The DepoView video editor, I don't know if any of you have used it previously, but I would encourage you to do so. We can provide you this software for free, and we can come to your office and train you on how to use it for free. And it will probably take 30 minutes to learn to use. But what it is you can see there on the right-hand side is the video. In the center is the actual transcript, and on the left is the keyword index. And it makes the video completely searchable. So I can type in any word. I can type in standard of care, and it will jump to every place in that video where it said standard of care. So you can search it just like you would a transcript, or you can scroll through the keyword index and you can type in any word, and then you can jump to that place on the video. And if I had one more time, again, we'd spool it up and go through it. All the exhibits are hyperlinked. So you can click on any exhibit and it will go to the place in the video where the witness is looking at the exhibit and talking about the exhibit. And here's the best part. If you want to make video clips, right, for trial or mediation, the way you do them right now is either you or your lawyer or the lawyers you work with has to watch the whole video and then go through and find a timestamp where it'll say, like, hour number 1, minute 24, second 32, and they have to write that down, and then they have to write down when they want it to end, and then you send it to some company like ours who cuts the video for you. We have to charge you $50, $60, $70 an hour, and then we send it back to you, and it's a long process. With this, all you do is you go to the transcript, you find the part of the transcript that you like, or that you need, the words, you highlight them, you click right on it, and you press the clip button, and it makes the clip for you. You're done. You don't have to go through and search the video by hour and minute. You don't have to send it off to us to make the video clip for you. You or your lawyer team can do it in minutes. Well, that saves your clients hundreds and hundreds of dollars of time that was otherwise spent doing it. It also allows you as paralegals to have another skill that's, adds value. If you can do this quickly and efficiently, your law firm can charge the clients, $50, $100 an hour, whatever your hourly rate is, to perform this work. So instead of this being something that was a cost to your firm, it's now a profit to your firm. And then when you guys have your yearly review, you can say to the office manager, hey, look at all this money, income I generated through doing these clips. So it helps you, it helps your client, everybody wins. You can save time, improve results, make more money by using DepoView. And what I would again encourage you to do is set up a time, and we can either do it remotely or come to your office and show you how to use the software in very little time at all. Somebody always asks me, well, does it work with my presentation software? Yes, here's all the presentation software it works with, and there's more. And whatever, if you already have existing video, or you have video of a trial that you want synchronized because you want to search it for an appellate case, we can synchronize all of that for you as well. So if you schedule somewhere else, that's bad. Even though he's now older, he's still crying over it. So please don't schedule anywhere else. Scheduling with us is good, makes life a beach. We're done. Of course, now he's an old kid. We've got to adopt another young, cute kid because, we're out of him at this point. Anyway, any questions for you guys? All right. Well, I really appreciate it. I hope this was somewhat helpful. Please feel free to reach out to me or Chloe or Lisa, and we would love to show you how to use DepoViewer so that you can easily make video clips for trials and mediations and go from there.
Thanks, Mike. That was very interesting.
All right. Well, you all have a great day, and let us know if we can do this again for some other topic, and we're happy to help in any way we can.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Lisa and Chloe.